Hi everybody and welcome back to Bookkeepers Bootcamp. I am joined now by Laura. Laura Weston. Laura is a finance expert and she's the founder of financial coaching business Savvy Peacocks. And Laura has very kindly let me squeeze her into the schedule so she can come on and talk to us about building your confidence around personal finances. And I felt like this was a really important session for us to have because a lot of bookkeepers, when you're starting your business, you might be making that decision about whether you should leave your employment so you can take your business full time, and even things like that. It all comes back to conversations and decisions about your personal finances. So I think it'll be really interesting to have a conversation today. Before I get started though, I'm just going to welcome you. If you're joining us live, we're streaming into our Facebook group, the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club. We're also streaming onto YouTube at the moment. If you're watching us live, use #live. If you're on replay, let us know it's a replay. We have a competition running this week. So on Sunday, somebody will win a one-to-one strategy session with Joe and me. That will be the person who engages with the most sessions. So I know lots of you are coming back and lots of you have given up a lot of your day today to join us for the 7 live sessions that we're doing. But let's get on with this conversation about personal finances. Laura, it's so lovely to see you on a video. We met on Clubhouse, so we speak all the time, but we don't see each other.
Yeah, I think we've practically spoken to each other every day for the last 5 or 6 weeks. But this is the first time we're actually seeing each other face to face. So
I know.
It's lovely.
It's really nice. Yeah,
maybe one day we can actually get to see each other face to face.
I know. Well, we were saying we'll have to have like a Centre Parks hookup, won't we, at some point? Yeah. So we need to make that happen. It would be really good. Oh, well, look, thanks for coming on. So you are an absolute expert in the finances area, all aspects really, I think, of financial advice. I think I'd probably ask you anything and you'll have some idea of the answer or know where to look. But we thought that today we should come on and just talk about the things that affect us as business owners when we're making those decisions to start our own businesses. I think there are probably lots of things people worry about when they're thinking about leaving employment and going into self-employment. And I suppose, where do we start? What are the first things to think about? If you're starting a business now, what can you do to start building your confidence around your personal finances to feel secure about your future as you make big changes in your life?
Okay, so for me, it's about having honesty in the room and the reality about what the actual figures are. So there's no point you saying, oh, I'm going to start a business and off you go and worry about it later around how you're going to cover your bills and how you're going to cover your essentials and your necessities. And when I say that, I also mean, you're living as well. So you shouldn't be in a position where you're focusing just on your bills and your food. It should be about maintaining some level of lifestyle that you enjoy, because you never want to get to a point where you resent it because you're not having to, for example, go and get your nails painted and being able to treat yourself, for example. So having that honesty in the room around what the true figures are, for me, is really important. And the easiest way you can do that is just by looking at your bank statements, going through with a, sorry, the dog's trying to get involved, going through with a highlighter and having some honesty in the room, because it doesn't matter how much you think, your food shopping is costing you £500 a month. In reality, unless you go through on that bank statement, it may well be charging you £700, and you just don't know until you go through into the nitty gritty of what the actual numbers are.
It's a really good point. And I think, well, those are definitely in my house. Those are the things that or takeaways are the thing where we just, and you don't see it adding up. And it's only when you go back and actually reflect on what's happening in the bank statements. And I think probably if you are in a position where there is just money in there and it's not really a concern, you don't really have a handle on what is going in and out anyway. And it's really difficult to make any kind of decisions based on that. Just like if we think of any of our clients, a lot of small business owners are guilty of bank balance accounting. Is there money in the bank? Yes. Okay, then everything must be fine. And I think we can get stuck in that trap as well as individuals. And if you are thinking about making a change that's going to affect your personal income while you grow and build your business, then we need to be aware that we are sometimes sucked into that trap as well, so we can be prepared to deal with it. You mentioned, sorry, go on, Laura.
I was just going to say, sometimes that can come up with some surprises and some shocks. And I just wanted to give some surety that it doesn't matter if it comes up with a good figure and you're on track with where you thought you were, or there's some surprises in there, because that's actually a gift. It's an opportunity for you to be able to get more into those figures and find ways in which you can cut back. Maybe you need to look at, for example, Sky's a big one, isn't it? You know, until it automatically goes out on direct debit, but so often you don't realise when it's jumped up to above £100 sometimes because they've changed the programme, you've missed the email. And so it might be that the figure's far higher than you imagined, but at least you know that figure now, and it gives you an opportunity to go back into your figures and renegotiate your bills and renegotiate your packages and cut back on your food shopping and making sure that you're being quite structured and particular about that. So I think either way, you're going to win by knowing those figures, but it's just, you know, sometimes it's taking that step, because it can be a little bit daunting sometimes, because you just don't know what's going to pop up.
Louise has just commented that hers repeatedly says Amazon. Oh, I know that feeling. Absolutely. And we don't
during lockdown.
Absolutely. And then of course as well, because it's all just going to Amazon, you don't know why, because you can buy everything from Amazon now. So then you don't even really understand, well, why am I spending so much? What is it? Where is this money going? What is it that I need? So going back to basics is a really good way to get some confidence around your starting point.
Yeah, and funny enough, I was talking yesterday about this to another client, and she'd never heard of this app called Clio. I don't know if you've heard of it, but what Clio does,
Clio,
C-L-E-O. So what it does is it draws all of your bank accounts into one place. So if you have got bank accounts in various different high street banks, then it draws it all into one place. You can see an overall balance. So it's quite good to be able to see as a sort of a one-off figure. But what it also does is it gives you little prompts. So it'll say, it's got like a chat function thing. So it will say, oh, you've spent £120 at Amazon this week. That's up 20% from last week. No. Do you need to have a little word with yourself? And, you know, and then it does like a little quiz at the end of the week, and it asks you 4 questions. And if you get the questions right, it'll enter into a prize draw. But what it does is it encourages you to look at those figures and compare week on week and have a look at your money habits and where your money's going. So, you know, yes, it can be a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the same time, if it gets your juices throwing and you're being more conscious with your spending, then I think that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I think people like to hide away from this stuff though. Sometimes we see this with business owners we work with, and they don't always like to know exactly what it is. They like to go, okay, well, that was the past, let's move on. What can I do in the future? So it can be a bit of a wake up call when you go through this process and sort of look at your business. I mean, I can remember when we got married, I can remember thinking, oh, we didn't spend a fortune on our wedding, but we spent some money on our wedding. And we thought, how on earth are we ever going to save the money to pay for a wedding? And, you know, there were some things, and we were like, you know, where can we save a bit of cash here? Do we really need that? Can we do this instead? And I think we're quite savvy about it. But we still suddenly were able to find a lot of money that, you know, in the previous 12 months, we wouldn't have thought, oh, I wonder how I can save however many thousands of pounds I'm going to need to pay for a wedding. So when you are focused on it, you'll be surprised at what you can do by just being aware of what's going on and making some tweaks.
And also your emotions were involved in that. You were emotionally invested in that money goal. And that's something that I do with clients all the time is, what's your money goal? What's the purpose for it? How will that make you feel? What are the emotions behind it? Because then you get so much more emotionally invested, and therefore you're more inclined to actually find a will. You know, if there's a will, there's a way. There's you know, you're going to achieve it far easier. In actual fact, I see people achieving their goals far sooner as well if they've got that emotional understanding about what it means to them.
Oh, I love that. And I think, and that's quite reassuring for people who are thinking of leaving employment to start a business, because maybe one of the things for you is that you think, if I've got a buffer, like some money in my savings account that I know can top me up if I'm not making quite as much money in the first couple of months while I'm finding my client base, maybe if that is it will work for some people, it won't work for other people. But if that is something emotional that you're working towards so that you can take that leap, it might be that you put a name on what exactly it is you're working for. Is that what you'd recommend in terms
Yeah,
of
and
saving goals?
yeah, I mean, and also what would give you the comfort? What's going to make you take that pressure off your shoulders? Because if you've got that money pressure on your shoulders when you're first starting your business, then the chances are you're probably not going to be as successful as you would be without that pressure. You know, there's nothing worse than keeping awake all night because you're worrying about money. So anything you can do to give you that comfort, then I believe the more successful you're going to be. But the other side of this that I kind of caveat it with is what's the worst that's going to happen? And this is something I talk to clients about, you know. So if you are going to make a change in your life, and in this case, oh, there's Daisy getting involved. If you're going to make a change in your life, and in this case, start a business, then thinking about, okay, what's the worst that could happen if I take this leap and it's not as successful as I thought it was going to be? Then what's going to be what's the worst case scenario? I'm so sorry. Do you want to come on video? I think she wants to come on video. That's why. What's the worst case scenario? Come on. We've got a live dog. There we go. What's the worst case scenario? You know, and if that worst case scenario isn't really that bad, you know, you have to go back to a day job, then so be it. At least you've given it a chance. You've lived by your dreams. You've given it a go, and you're not going to look back. So I always encourage people to look at that worst case scenario, because quite often it's not really that bad. And I think you and I, Zoe, have had that discussion a few times, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think it's a case that you set a limit? So you say, okay, look, I'm going to give myself this time. I feel at the moment, I don't know. I'm just thinking about what it was like when I left my employment to take my bookkeeping practice full time. So I knew I had some regular income, but I also knew it wasn't quite enough to cover everything, like to match my salary. So I gave myself a year to match my salary, and I knew that I had a buffer so I could like make up the difference for however many months until I got to that point. But I also knew that if it wasn't going to work for me in a year, I was going to go back to work, and I had that time drawn in the sand so that I wasn't able to, I don't know, borrow money from my savings and, you know, endlessly. Like, I wanted to be really sensible about it. And as it happened, I ended up having another baby. So things changed quite a lot. But do you think that having like being really clear with yourself about what this looks like and what your backup plan is going to be if it doesn't work out is going to just give you the confidence so that you can go, okay, I've sorted the money. I've got an idea. I've got a plan for the money stuff. Now I can just go on and focus on my business with confidence. Yeah. And I know if this thing happens, this is what I'm going to do next.
Yeah, and also that it means that you're not going to spiral out of control, because if you don't put that time frame in, then potentially you could just let things ride, couldn't you? Look at her, she's a funny one. I told you before, didn't I? Dogs are worse than babies, honestly. That she's so needy. But yeah, if you don't put that time frame on things, then things are going to spiral out of control, and potentially time's going to pass by. Maybe you might even end up getting into debt just because you don't want to give up and you don't want to let things slide. So I think if in advance you can put that time frame on things based around what's your worst case scenario, how does that look, how much money have you got available to you to give you that buffer, then and stick to that and share it with others around you. You know, share it with close confidants or your partner or anything, so that you're accountable to that, and that you're not just going to keep extending it just because you're living in hope of things being amazing, which I'm sure
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you're right there. You're right. We don't want to live in hope. And I think that is why people can be quite afraid of taking this kind of leap, because they don't want to. So this is all about confidence this week. And we do need to be, somebody mentioned on our last live, we were just, our last session was talking about being visible online and having the confidence to do that. And Claire, who I don't know if Claire's here now, but Claire pointed out that we have loads of competence, but we don't have the confidence. So we do have the skills. Most people in this group have done some kind of bookkeeping qualification, or they're accountants, and they definitely do have the skills, but they don't necessarily have the belief yet. And that's why we wanted to run this whole session, this week of sessions, to get you focused on building your confidence in different areas. So I do believe that people have the toolkit to do this, and we're here to help people to fight, like draw on the stuff they already know and then adapt that and build a strong business. That's why we run our Bookkeepers 6-month success program. We really do have a process that you can follow so you can start your own business and be confident that you're going to be able to find clients and market your business and scale and all of that stuff that you need to do to grow a successful business. But you might not believe that yet. And I think I think perhaps the people who don't have the confidence might think, well, but what if it doesn't work? Am I just sort of hoping? And they aren't confident yet that they do have the process and the ability to build a business, perhaps because they haven't done it before. Like a lot of us haven't run businesses before when we do this kind of stuff.
But the other thing is, if you are financially prepared and you are accountable to yourself, you've set yourself some limits and your time frames, then you can go all in on it. You can completely throw yourself in on it because you don't have that financial concern because you've made a plan, you've got some bases covered, you know your money, you know your figures, you're inside out, and you've set up a time frame to work towards. So that means it allows you to go all in. And I'm a big believer in go big or go home. If you're going to do it properly, get the right support around you, because that's giving you then the best chance to succeed, isn't it? There's no point doing things half-heartedly. I hate it when people do that. So yeah, I'm all for go big or go home.
I love that, Laura. That we needed you today. We needed you today.
I'm one of those motivational people. So
I love it. It is, and that is it. And I think we do lack confidence in a lot of things, but we do have the skills to do this. So if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. Okay. When we were talking about running this session, you said you had some good ideas around budgeting. Is it worth us having a chat about how we can be better at budgeting for our personal lives? Would that be a good place to start for people who want to just be confident that they can cover the overheads that they've got at home while they go all in on their business?
Yeah, so we've kind of covered off part of it around knowing your numbers. Once you know your numbers, I think it's really important to look back at those numbers and say, are they at the right level? Am I comfortable with them? Could I get things cheaper? Go back into renegotiating any of your bills. I love doing that. I love nothing more than going back in and renegotiating or finding ways in which to maybe cut back. Maybe you're paying for a subscription that you don't need anymore. And again, food shopping we've already talked about is a great way to cut back. And then the other side of things, I don't actually like the word budgeting because I think people feel it as quite restrictive. And again, when you're in this situation where you're starting a business and your finances could potentially change, the worst feeling would be if you then felt restricted on top of that, which is why I said towards the beginning around thinking about your lifestyle and what elements of your finances is going to help you to continue to have a nice lifestyle at the same time as launching a business. Don't feel like you're going without. And it might be that you have to change your lifestyle, but it doesn't mean you have to go without, and that you are accounting for money going towards your hobbies and money going towards enjoying yourself once in a while. It shouldn't be about, oh, well, I'm starting a business, so for this first 6 months, I'm just not going to go out and have any meals, or I'm not going to have any takeaways or anything, because then you're going to start resenting it. And actually, what you probably end up doing is working all the hours God sends rather than, living. And at the end of the day, we're starting businesses and working because we want to create a nice life and enjoy things. So that's a big part of when you're looking at your finances, I think, is allowing yourself. And something I talk about quite often is giving every pound a purpose. So when you know how much money you've got coming in, particularly if those of you that are employed at the moment and you're thinking about moving on, is when your salary comes in, assigning it to different jobs within your lifestyle. And I mean every single penny, so that it's all set aside and you know where it's going and what it's doing. Starling offer a great service where you can set up as many pots as you want. So you could literally have a fun money pot, a children pot, a food pot, literally separate all of your money out and then stick to it. So if you are going to assign yourself £500 for food and you get to the 25th of the month and you've spent all of that £500, then it's saying, okay, do you know what? I'm beans on toast now for the rest of the month until I get to the 30th. It's 5 days. I can do it. But I am not just going to find the money or spend it from elsewhere or whack it on the credit card for the sake of 5 days, because then you are being particular about what you're spending your money on, and it might give you a little bit more awareness for next month. So if you can assign your money out in that way, then I think that's kind of a best practice rather than sort of budgeting and trying to restrict yourself.
That's really interesting. It makes me think of this kind of method that people used to use with cash and like envelope accounting. So like you'd get when you in the days when you get a little one of those little square book packets with your money in, and then you'd have your envelopes and put your money in for. I mean, this was before I had responsibilities and things, but like, this is the money I'm saving. This is the money that I'm going to spend on clothes or whatever, and then just being really clear on where all of that money is. It's just like that, isn't it? But an electronic approach to it using something like Starling.
Yeah, but also accounting for those annual costs as well. So for any parents out there, one big thing is like school shoes, isn't it? School shoes are expensive, and typically they need a new set every term or so. And so if you're not accounting for that within your monthly figures, then it could be a bit of a surprise bill. And that's the whole point of separating your money out, is that you're thinking in advance, what are those surprise bills, so that you're accounting for them, and then you know what pot you're taking it from at the time you need to buy that big thing that you buy once a quarter.
Do you have a school shoes square in your Starling account?
I oh God, this is embarrassing. I have a children's school fund.
Right.
But the reason I have that is because it's school uniform, school shoes. My children are young at the moment. They're only 2, 4 and 6. So what I'm trying to do is create a little bit of a fund. So I put a little bit extra in for school trips, because I know when they get to 9, 10, 11, 12, those school trips can actually be quite expensive. So I'm trying to take the edges off of those now.
It's a really good idea. My school used to do a skiing trip. I never went on it, but I can't imagine like your kids coming home with a slip of paper that says, by the way, we're going skiing next week. It's going to be £900 or something.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I wouldn't want my children to go without. I want to be able to give them the choice. They don't have to go, but if they want to, it's within, it's within what we've prepared for.
Oh my goodness, I think we could learn so much from you, Laura. I think we might need a lesson on this. It's just amazing. Let's just break that down then. So you would suggest that people look at the money that they've got coming in, look at what their bills and like their requirements are in their family. So the regular monthly stuff, which you can work out by looking at your direct debits, and then think ahead to what else is going to come up through the year. So holidays, 1 or 2 holidays a year, and making sure that there's some money every month going into this pot, so it's ready, sort of building up towards it. And then whatever your annual costs are or quarter, you've just got a bit of money put aside every time towards that.
Yeah, and a few things to say on that. So a few of our annual bills, should we say, are better off if you pay them annually, like your home insurance and your car insurance. So if you can get to a point where you're tucking the money aside so that you pay for them annually, then they often work out far cheaper, because if you pay monthly, then there's going to be an interest charge. And some places offer you like 10 months for the price of 12 if you pay annually. And then the second thing I was just going to point out there is that think about not only that cost or that expense, but also what's attached to it. And cars are a big one, right? So if you've got a car and you're on PCP or hire purchase, for example, it's not just that monthly figure that you've got to think about. It's about tucking a little bit extra away for your annual car insurance, to get new tyres every 2 years, to pay for a service, to pay for an MOT, and then dividing that up into a monthly figure for you to be able to add into that car pot. So again, there's no surprise bill. The same as if you want to think about getting a new car in 3 years' time, okay, how much am I going to put aside every month to ensure that I've got a lump sum to put down towards a new car? And if it is 3 to 5 years' time, then maybe I'm going to tuck that away in an investment, because I know it can grow far more by being in an investment rather than in a savings account. And I know that I'm not going to touch it for 3 to 5 years, because I don't plan to buy a car for 3 to 5 years. So I'm going to give it the best opportunity to grow that I can.
Amazing. That is very interesting. And you've just made me think about people who are moving from employment and a steady regular income to moving into self-employment, either as sole traders or partnerships or running their own limited companies, that change of employment status can have an impact on other financial decisions and things that are coming up in your life. So if perhaps you're thinking about moving house or buying a house in the future, what do our bookkeepers need to be aware of if they are perhaps worrying about this? So if you are somebody who's thinking about going from employment to self-employment, and you think, well, actually, I might want to move house in a couple of years, does this need to be a reason to stop them from going into self-employment?
It doesn't need to be a reason, but I think what you need to do is explore what the lenders are looking for. And what we're talking about with this is around your income. Sorry, Daisy's coming back again. Goodness me. She's a female dog, I think, but at least we're nice and dog friendly. I can see lots of comments about how gorgeous she is. But she is gorgeous, to be fair. So what you need to think about if you're gonna be thinking about moving house or getting a mortgage, is the key part of this, is around what income your business needs to show. So there are two things with this: is think very carefully about whether you're going to be a sole trader or a limited company. And the reason that I say this is mortgage providers look for different things from sole traders as what they do for limited companies. So obviously, if you're a limited company and you're a director and you're only drawing a director's dividend, for example, quite often we'll only draw 10, 12 grand, leave the rest of the money in the business, then for income calculation purposes, the bank are going to only use that 10 or 12,000, regardless of how much money you've left into your business. So okay. It's being aware of that. And then the second thing. So
it might be, just to check, Laura, then, so that the people who are in that position might be better off to take a decent salary, even though they might pay a little bit more tax if they're thinking that they're going to have a mortgage coming up. Do they need to have a couple of years like track record of taking that salary out of the business, or is
2 to 3 years they look for? I mean, they will look if it was just the previous year. I guess it depends who you go to. The best bet is to use a financial expert or a broker where they can explore a number of options, because most lenders have loads of different criteria and things. But and then the other side of it is, if you're a sole trader, is they'll look more at your net profit and your turnover, which is great. So it might mean that you could get more of a mortgage if you're a sole trader rather than a limited company. And again, that's sort of caveated with, be careful if you want to move from a sole trader into a limited company, because then that could also have an effect on what's available to you if you're
you've got a shorter track record of being in that particular type of organization.
Yeah, but also you might then turn into wanting to take less out of the
I see.
we just talked about, and then it could make a difference. So yeah, it's just thinking in advance, I guess, preparing for what your goals are, what your future looks like in the next 10 years, what's coming up, and that's not only around what you want to do with holidays, buying houses, buying cars, moving, things like that. But also, if you want to do any house renovations, anything that you can see coming up in the next 10 years, what does that look like? And then put a price on it and then work towards those goals and what financial implications it has. That's exactly what I do for clients.
That sounds amazing. It sounds like there's a lot to think about. And I think perhaps one of the concerns is that we might forget to think about something, and then it comes back to bite us because we just haven't prepared. But there seems to be always a way around this kind of stuff. There seems to, if you speak to a good financial advisor, you're going to find somebody who's able to help you out or know where to turn. And that's the benefit of working with somebody who's in this industry, because they can help you.
Yeah, and also, like you say, there will always be a choice, but might mean that it's more expensive choice, because you've not planned in advance for it and it's not quite worked out as you thought. But, sometimes you can't help the inevitable. You just don't know what's going to happen. But if you can have thoughts in advance around what the next 10 years look like and what the probable things are that might come up that you might want to get done, then you can account for that within your budgeting. A big one actually is like requirements for the garden. We often need to replace our fences in the garden every 5 to 10 years. That's an expense that can be
I've never even thought about that. But that just shows how much you do this kind of thing. Like, this isn't even on my radar that I need to save money for fence panels. But yeah, I've replaced my fence panels. So
it's and who can find a magic £700? They can't. It's very difficult unless you've accounted for that. Same as if you want to redo, put some new plants and stuff in the garden every season, accounting for the fact, oh my goodness, so needy. Accounting for the fact that you want to spend £200 a year on the garden every season. And so what does that look like on a monthly basis? It's far more amenable if you can break it down into that smaller figure on a monthly basis.
Yeah, okay. Now, one more question then about saving. So we've been talking about like saving money, so we've got a buffer for, saving for holidays and things in the future, saving so we've got a buffer perhaps if we're going into self-employment and we want to know that we've got this money that's going to tide us over while we do whatever we need to do, or that we can fall back on if we don't find our ideal client straight away. Do you have any suggestions for, and I know you do you have any suggestions for people about what they should be looking to save, or how should you save? Should you be saving a certain amount every month? Should we be setting ourselves a target to have a certain amount readily available and then other money tied up? And how do you approach that? Because it can be really tempting to just squirrel everything away when you're going into this a situation of leaving employment to become self-employed.
Yeah, so I've got a few things to say about this, which I know you've probably already heard a million times in Clubhouse,
Okay.
Zoe. But, so first and foremost, an emergency fund. Build up an emergency fund so that when the boiler breaks or the washing machine breaks or something happens and you need it fixing now and you can't afford to put it off, and it's the kind of thing that you may well historically have just whacked on the credit card and thought about it later, is where the money comes from, is the emergency fund. So if you can get to £1,000, £1,500 within your emergency fund, then that's a good place to be in, because you're not going to be tempted to whack something on a credit card and worry about it later. The second thing is building up like 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses. So when I say expenses, what I'm talking about is the figure of the stuff that you need to survive. So worst case scenario, you don't have an income at all. And so what definitely needs covering? So all of your bills that are on a monthly basis through your direct debits, plus food. Obviously you need food. Everything else can slide. So, I'm not including things like Netflix subscriptions and Sky subscriptions and all things like that. I'm talking about your mortgage, your water, your gas, your electric, your food, your council tax, those things that have to be paid that would cause you a problem on your credit rating if you didn't pay them. Yeah. So what that figure is, and then times it ideally by 6. So you've got 6 months worth of expenses in your back pocket. So that's the second thing to think about building. And then aside from that, it's squirreling away money for these annual events or things that you want, should we say. So we've talked about holidays, we've talked about cars, we've talked about our children and the things that they might need in the next few years. It really does depend on your lifestyle and what your priorities are. But within that, you can include maybe some particular money goals that you've had around buying something new, or if you wanted a particular trip that you wanted to play for. So that's where that element would come in. And then another big tip that I sort of try and share with everyone is make sure you're diversifying. So you're not just holding all of your money in cash. So those elements that I've just talked about are ones where you'd keep them in cash, because if you need them in emergency, they're there and they're in cash, whether that's in a savings account alongside your current account, or you could hold it in premium bonds. You can get access to them in like 2-3 days. So as long as it's money that you're comfortable with only being able to access in 2-3 days, then that's fine. And then if you could also then plan to be tucking some money away longer term that may well grow a bit more than savings, then amazing. But don't do that until you've got those other 2 key pots in place, and then you can move on to looking at investing some money. And I shared something quite good in Clubhouse this morning that I just thought I'd share with you, so you can see the difference between putting money in a savings account and putting money in an investment. So if you let's say you earn £60,000 a year and you put 10% of your salary into savings each year, so that's £6,000. If you put £6,000 a year into a savings account, at the end of the 5 years, you're going to have £30,000. However, in 5 years' time, it's actually going to be more likely to be worth around £24,000, £25,000 with inflation and things included within it. Okay, so your £30,000 will still be there. You might have earned a little bit of interest on top, but with inflation, it's actually going to be more like £24,000, £25,000. If you put that same £6,000 into an investment linked to the stock exchange for the next 5 years, obviously it can go up and down, it has highs and lows, but on average it should come out to be looking more like £35,000 after that.
That's really interesting.
So then you're comparing the fact that actually by saving, it's going to deflate with inflation and get down to sort of 25, or you could give it the opportunity to grow and it could be more like 35,000. And £10,000 for me in that scenario is massive. So that just kind of gives you a little illustration around, you know, where you're going to hold your money and what you're going to do with it. And also, oh, sorry, Zoe. I was just going to say, I don't want anyone to be scared by that figure as well, because I've just given that as an example. But to be quite honest, even if you could put £20 a month into some form of investment for the longer term, when I say, you know, sort of 5 years plus, then you are going to benefit from that compounding interest and that growth just as much as you would by putting away a larger sum. So, you know, you can think smaller, you can think big, whatever suits you and your personal finances.
It's really interesting to talk about the savings versus investments. I used to work for a pension fund, so I'm familiar with the investment world. But I think, well, the majority of bookkeepers in the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club are women, and I also know that women are notoriously less risk. Well, I suppose that they're more risk averse than men are, which is probably a generalization, but statistics show it. So I think that women are less likely to invest in stocks and shares, and it is definitely worth speaking to somebody who knows their stuff in this area to make sure that you're making the most of your money. So if you haven't ever had a conversation with somebody about your investments and your savings, reach out to somebody like Laura, who can make sure that you are doing the best thing that's going to help you hit your goals in the future. Laura, I'm trying to catch up with the comments. Normally I'm here with Joe, and Joe's been helping field the comments, but there were a couple of things that I thought would be good to come back to. So we were talking about mortgages a while ago. Somebody said that they'd found one particular building society, I think it might have been Coventry, to be quite good with them as a sole trader, but I think that's something to speak to a financial advisor about if you are looking at mortgages. But somebody said, Laura said, I can't find the comment now. She was asking whether it would be better to have if you were a director of your company, would it make a difference if you had a contractual agreement stipulating the salary to be paid to the director from the business, or would they still just need like 2 years of history plus your P60s? Or
you're still the director of the limited company. So if you're the director of a limited company, they're going to look at what the director's remuneration is, regardless of what format that comes in.
Okay, and so that's fine. So, but they're not going to just look at it as you being employed and having 3 months of pay slips like you would normally expect if you were employed, because you are taking the risk because you're a director and owning your own company. Other people are saying, Penelope said she's always done a cash flow spreadsheet for her own finances and a budget. Good for you. Carly has said she saves every month towards Christmas, but it's good to have a couple of months worth of money.
I was going to comment about that actually, because I saw that one pop up. If you've got children, something that a lot of parents don't think about is just tucking a little bit away every month for Christmas and birthday presents, because that's a big shock for us quite often, isn't it? Where you sort of buy little knickknacks throughout that festive period, and before you know it, you've spent £200. So if you can tuck that money away on a monthly basis, then it just kind of softens that blow. But also something I like to share with people, and whether I'm a bad parent or not, but I don't actually spend a huge amount of money on my own children at their Christmas and birthdays, because they do have lots of other gifts from family members and friends. So I was trying to say to clients that don't necessarily get yourself so worried about the amount of money you're spending on your children whilst they're young, and save it for when, you know, they're maybe a little bit more demanding at 14, 15, 16, and they want the latest Xbox or whatever, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, because whilst they're young now, they don't really care who the present's coming from and where it's coming from and how much it costs. So
yeah, well, no, they don't. just oblivious, aren't they, really? Okay, so someone has said, could I have an idea / advice, please, on how much should I need to consider for a buffer fund to set up my bookkeeping business? For example, a budget of 6 months, software, compliance, marketing. So on the business side of things, I would say that there is a lot of stuff that you can do cheaply or for free, and only invest. If you're going to buy software subscriptions and things, only buy the stuff that you absolutely need. Have a free trial first and check it works for your business. There are going to be things you have to have, like your professional indemnity insurance, and other insurances, depending on whether you're an employer or if you need public liability and things like that as well. You don't need the social media, doesn't cost anything. So it depends who your ideal client is, but there are lots of savvy ways to, I keep saying savvy, Laura, it's because you're savvy peacocks, but there are lots of low cost and free ways to market your business. And actually at 3 o'clock, we're talking to Michelle Ewan about PR and publicity, and that might be an interesting session. I can't see who's posted this, it just says Facebook user, but come and listen to that session and hear about what she has to say about that, because she'll have some ideas of how to get free marketing. But in terms of like the buffer fund to set up your business, if you're bringing in clients in, you should have a profitable business. So there's no real need to have particularly high expenses. And some of them, it'll be interesting to see in the comments what other people think about that. I think it's important to be making a profit from your first client. I absolutely would be looking for that. But then it's about, I guess, going back to your personal finances, Laura, and looking for that 6 month buffer, would you say, to feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think if you can have your 6 month buffer for your personal finances, then it's going to sort of alleviate that pressure, shall we say, of you having to earn a certain amount from the business in order to cover off your necessities. And I agree with what you've said there. To begin with, when you're starting a business, go for the lower packages, see how you get on. Don't pay out for things that you don't have to pay out for. Use the resources around you, ask others what they use, and find out the free ways in which you can run your business to begin with. And then when you are earning more profits and you do have more clients, then absolutely outsource, because the more you outsource, then the freer, the more free you are to get on with the activities that are going to be income generating. So but again, there are even cheap ways to outsource, aren't there? I mean, you can hire a VA for £20-25 an hour, and they can get a lot done in an hour. So
yeah, they can, absolutely. And if you can charge more for your time, then you're paying somebody to do some other work that you would otherwise be doing. It's opportunity cost. What is the cost of me doing the work versus the profit I can make if I do something else that I can charge for minus the cost of that other person? If you're going to be better off, then it's a decision that you need to outsource. Louise has said, we want to get a bigger house. My IFA told me about 2 years of books, which is fine, but I want to go limited. Plan was to get mortgage first before doing this. Is it the only way, as I'd like to go limited sooner? What would you say, Laura?
I mean, if you want to share on the chat, Louise, the reason why you want to go limited, then I'd be interested in that kind of perspective. But just from a mortgage perspective, you're going to get more of a mortgage by being a sole trader than you are being a limited company. So I think you and I have had that conversation before as well, Zoe, in Clubhouse, that if you can stay a sole trader, and that fits comfortably with you and your setup, then try and get the mortgage as a sole trader before you switch over to a limited company, particularly if you're going to switch, because it may well be that a lot of mortgage providers won't then include any of your income, even your previous earning income, if you're then on paper deemed as starting a new business, because it is a new legal entity as a limited company. It's separate from you as a sole trader. So
are there any banks who have like seen that this just is bonkers?
It makes sense, does it? It just doesn't make sense. But they, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but you are a number. You're not a real person. And it goes back to that funny advert, doesn't it? Computer says no. It's the same thing. You know, very rarely, when you're looking at mortgages these days, is a real person assessing whether you're a credit-worthy risk or not. Quite often, it will just all be done through a computer system. You know, and I've got to tell you, you know, I was approving mortgages 10 years ago or so. That stopped at that point, and since then, it's been through computers rather than being an individual involved in making a decision around, you know, whether that person's a good credit risk or not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fascinating. I mean, I'm selling my house at the moment, and I met the buyers yesterday, which is unusual, but they said that they'd had the survey done, and the surveyor just drove past the house. That was it. That's all the survey. So that just shows how, like, I'm surprised they even bothered to come out.
Yeah, well, this is what I was going to say. It's surprising that they even did a drive-by, because there are lots of electronic systems now where they can just put in the postcode and the details of the property, and it gives you a figure. They don't even have to come out half the time.
It's amazing. Oh, okay. Well, I think there's another question here from Diana. Could I have an idea or advice, please, on how much? Oh, this is the same question. Sorry, Diana. This is the question about having a buffer. So hopefully we've answered that question for you. I don't know whether Laura...
I think the reason she may want to go limited is because of the dividend tax saving. Yeah, so it just goes back to what I said. Unfortunately, I think it's probably far better on paper around mortgages to stay a sole trader until you're at a point where you've got that sorted before going limited, even if it does
just take the hit on the tax for a bit. Yeah. Okay, well, I think that we've covered absolutely loads in this session. I think everyone's going to be going out and setting up their savings pots and thinking about their legal structure and savings. It's been a really interesting conversation. Thank you so much for answering everybody's questions, and it's been really nice to meet you in sort of real life.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram under savvy_peacocks. Please feel free to DM and reach out to me with any other questions. Also, I just wanted to mention that I am starting my own podcast next month, Money Savvy Parents. So please watch out for that, because I'm going to share loads of information. It's going to be short 10-15-minute podcast sessions on a weekly basis, where I'm just going to give you loads of information like we've done today, so that you can go ahead and build that within your lifestyle and your family. So hopefully you'll get lots of benefit from that if you listen to it.
It is going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. I know you've started recording it already. Laura has just said, does Daisy have a social media page? I think we need to
see. She? I mean, she's definitely enough of a drama queen. Look at her today. How needy is she? She definitely. I put her on my Instagram today, actually, and it's probably one of my most engaging posts because she's so beautiful. But yeah, maybe I could find someone to run it for her, though. I don't think I've got enough time to run her social media page.
Well, we've been talking to everyone about finding their superpower. What's the thing that makes them stand out? What is your the special thing for people to know about you? And I think Daisy Dog has just proven how something else in your life that is nothing to do with your work can really steal the show. So Laura, you'll be forever known for Daisy Dog, I think.
But funny enough, I started in Clubhouse with a picture of me and Daisy, and I used to say in Clubhouse, "Oh, hi, it's Laura. I've got Daisy Dog in the picture." And then everyone knew that it was me. So goodness me, that seems like a lifetime ago now. It's only a few months ago. But yeah, she's a girl after my own heart. She likes the attention, and I think that's a great female empowerment that we all have. So there we are.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for today, and have a great afternoon. And for everybody else who's still watching, we're going to be back at 3:00 talking to Michelle and Christian Ewan about PR, getting your business noticed and building your confidence around that. So hope you'll join me at 3:00. Thanks so much, Laura. See you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.